G'day guys and welcome back to the Freo Faithful pod episode number 5 today, I believe. Coming off a loss again.
Come on!
Episodes in a row. So, happy days. Like to see that we're consistent. Haven't won since the last derby and we got the derby coming up. So, hopefully we can make it 2 in a row in that derby. But, yeah, Noah, what are we saying, brother? Welcome back to the pod.
Thanks, mate. Couldn't be better, to be honest. I've sort of just made a rule for myself this week. Like, outside of this channel, I'm just not speaking football. Because if you live in WA, like a majority of this viewership, you'll know that in a two-team town, it is absolutely insufferable to talk to any fan of the opposition fan in Derby week. So yeah, I'm terrified just for this entire week leading up. Absolute horrific performance yesterday. And I don't really know where to go from here.
I wouldn't say it was absolutely horrific, but it wasn't the best. How did you see it from the game? What happened?
Well, it was just, I feel like we had the game lost through. I'm going to try to stay as positive as I can.
You don't have to say positive. Just stay level-headed.
I'm staying level-headed. It's just very difficult when we've seen the same thing for this is now 6 games in a row, stretching back to last year. As you just alluded to, the last one was the Derby last season. And it's just so many of these games where we really struggled to close out in the dying embers. And some of those games, we were sort of in it. We were the better team and just completely fell away in the fourth quarter. Example, the Essendon game. In this case, I feel like we had a fantastic first quarter. We sort of bounced on Sydney's missed opportunities. I think Will Hayward missed a few in the first quarter. But then for those final 3 quarters, there were stages where we were up by 3 to 4 goals, and I just had a feeling that we were going to find a way to lose it. Like, nothing felt like it was going right. The IQ on display was really weird. Like, there were always daring options available. Sydney weren't really closing the corridors as well as they could have. I don't think they defended particularly well. We just weren't pouncing on it. So yeah, it was a really, really frustrating day at the footy.
Yeah, you were alluding to then our inability to put away teams, and Paddy Money, or Mooney, on our Instagram, put in a statement just saying, I feel like our main issue once again is the inability to completely put teams away. And I think it was you that said it last night on the fan cams that it just felt like after that first quarter, we never looked like the team that was going to win the game. Like, we sort of were just, I don't know, and we'll get into it a bit more, but just didn't seem like there was any urgency or any killer instinct to see that the 4 points were there for the taking yesterday and go and win it. We play Sydney later in the year, and you just already know at the SCG that's going to be a much higher level game. Obviously, it's early in the season. It was pretty tough conditions in the heat. But yeah, it was just such I wouldn't say a low-pressure game. I think the end-to-end nature of it induced fatigue in our players. But yeah, it was such a winnable game. And yeah, it was a real frustrating one.
Yeah, really, it's just annoying as well because that loss last night was so preventable. It was Fergo who came on the fan cams last night, and just an example of the sort of nature of the loss. Michael Frederick and Bailey Banfield combined for 0 tackles. I mean, when you're missing a guy like Sam Switkowski, who's an absolute barometer, you need those other sort of small forwards to step up in that case. And I thought our intensity yesterday just wasn't up to scratch, particularly in that second half. Sydney are a team full of hard runners. Jake Lloyd, Matt Roberts, Riley Bice had a fantastic game kicking that winner on the run, or near winner. Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner, like they've got so many hard-working players. It's not a game where you can afford to just fold over and get outworked. So, yeah, I really feel like our intensity wasn't up to scratch, and these losses just so preventable, which is the frustrating thing.
Yeah, I just crave 4 points now. Like, I'm itching for it. We haven't won a game, I reckon, since probably July last year.
Yeah, it was July. It came out today, yeah.
That's crazy. Like, this team actually has forgotten how to win games at this point. You were speaking about running, like the running of Sydney. You brought it up last week when we were speaking about Bailey Smith. I think we've obviously put the work in over the off season, but it's knowing how to apply that running in games. I think one of the positives from yesterday was the inclusions of Neil Erasmus and Patrick Voss. I know a lot of the faithful right now aren't happy with Vossi for that late missed shot and then bad turnover in the middle of the ground as well. But I think those inclusions were actually quite good. The only thing that Erasmus did all day wrong was costly, and it just shows you that moments in games are so important. It was when that Riley Bice goal happened. Erasmus just switched off for a couple of seconds. Bice got out the back and ended up kicking that goal. But looking to the positives, I think that was one of Erasmus's better games from a offensive perspective. And I thought Vossi had a very good game as well. I thought he competed well. Just needs to improve in front of goal. But to be fair, he kicked one. He kicked one goal, three. Kicked one out on the full. That one in front, like, it hit the post. But I don't think he has, like, the yips. I think he could have, easily kicked a couple more goals on the day. But yeah. What other things went well for you on the day? We'll say positive, and then we can dig in.
Yeah, just quickly before I go there, I want to mention you made a really good point with how I think we're probably one of the fittest teams in the league. Like, first 2 games, we've had no one cramp up towards the end of the game. I think we've really conditioned ourselves well. I just think, as you said, it's our ability to put it into effect in the right times. Like, I don't think it's our fitness that's necessarily the issue, but we've moaned on about it for so long, just the mix in certain areas of the grounds. Again, I think we got our back mix wrong yesterday. Props to JL for trying something different. Draper is sub, Chappie playing a bit taller, but that didn't work out. I like the inclusion of Erasmus, as you said. I think the main criticism with Erasmus throughout his entire career is when he stepped up to AFL level, his composure's been a bit off, but I thought yesterday he actually stepped up to the plate. I thought some of his quick hands were really nice. Which is something we've seen at Peel level. There's no doubt he's a talented footballer, and I think we saw a bit of his talent yesterday, taking it to AFL level, which I was really happy with. A few brain fades late, but he's still a young player. I think we've got to remember that, and if we give him a run of games, I'm sure he'll give us something. Sarong was tagged out of the game by James Jordan. I mean, this isn't really something to be disappointed about. Obviously, you want your star players to be playing like stars, but James Jordan held Lockie Neal to his worst game in 11 years. Last week. Lockie Neal's a dual Brownlow medalist, one of the best in and under players in the game. And Caleb Strong was just another victim of that James Jordan tag. So yeah, he will be disappointed, but what can you do when a tag is playing that well? And I think a guy that stood up to the plate was Jagger and Mira yesterday. When we were doing our best 22s in the preseason, we were both in the agreement. I think we were nearly both in the minority. Jagger and Mira is a best 22 player. But it's just that guy, that experienced head, you want the ball in his hands. And having guys like that in your team when you're down in the dumps is absolutely invaluable. And that's why you've got to, look at the selection table. Do you look at a James Ace to replace the Brandon Walker next week? You just want some of those older heads where you can rely on them in their disposal and their leadership.
You covered a lot there. So I'll try to break down what you said. You started with saying we're one of the fittest teams in the comp. I don't think you can say that based on what we've seen the last 2 weeks. We looked very fatigued yesterday, I thought, very laboured. I thought there wasn't enough urgency. And the week before, we struggled to run with Bailey Smith. So I don't really agree with what you said there. You see, I went and watched GWS in round 1 against Melbourne. That is a fit team because in the end, they literally just ran over the top of them, kicked I don't know how many goals it was in the last quarter. But if you're the fittest team in the comp, you're getting on the outside and scoring goals in transition, which we didn't really do all day. So disagree with you there. Jager O'Meara was probably our best on ground, led the disposals, 32 touches. Really good at centre bounce yesterday. And yeah, just a calm head. Didn't really put a foot wrong for me yesterday, Jager O'Meara. And you mentioned Heath Chapman going back playing third tall. Still not sure where his best position is. Think the evolution of this team is going to require us finding the right role for Heath Chapman. I think he's a really different player for us. So yeah, we'll see what he can provide going forward. And then you mentioned there as well, James Aish. Yeah, I don't think he's ever really put in a bad shift for us. Maybe he can be exposed defensively at times. But with Brandon Walker going out, we probably could do with a little bit more experience in the back half. So, yeah, maybe James Aish can go in. Watching it from home, the main things that really frustrated me, it just felt like there was a real lack of urgency, a lack of intent, a real, killer instinct I just wanted a player to just take the game by the scruff of the neck and dominate. And to be fair, JT, he could hold his head high after yesterday's performance. But yeah, it just felt like there was times when sort of we're transitioning the ball. There just didn't seem like there was much urgency. Like there was, like, felt like the shackles were on a little bit. Justin Longmuir said in the preseason when we played the Indigenous All-Stars that, you know, we kept it pretty vanilla today. Well, I haven't seen any chocolate or strawberry, any sort of Neapolitan number other than vanilla this season, mate. It's been, yeah, it has felt like the shackles are on. Pundits in the media, you know, they're always going to be on JL's back, and he is copping the heat at the moment. But when I was at the Fox Footy launch earlier this year and interviewed David King, he said, Freo have everything they need. It's just a matter of whether the coach can come to the party and let them express themselves. And at the moment, we've got all the talent. We've got Shea Bolton on this list. We've got Luke Jackson, who's proving to be one of the best rucks in the comp. Talent absolutely everywhere. And we're still playing this boring shit football. Which is quite worrying.
Well, you mentioned the Neapolitan. I actually think we have seen a bit of chocolate because I just think it's been disguised as shit, to be honest. Like, these 2 weeks, you mentioned urgency. It's so off-putting. Like, this fan base has so much optimism. These players have so much talent. But when I was at the game yesterday, I sit on the half-forward flank level 5, so I can see up the wing really well. There are so many numbers available, making themselves available on the inside, on the outside, anywhere but down the line to a big pack. Like, Josh Tracy and Luke Jackson can only do so much with a contest with 3 Swans tools in there. It was just really frustrating. Our method let us down so much yesterday. I'm sure JL said it in his presser. I couldn't really bring myself to watch it. Yeah, mate, we've got to sort something out. But, you know, I put something up on our Freo Faithful Instagram story last night that premierships aren't won in March. We're 0-2. The Premier started the season 0-3 last year, including a hefty loss to us, who missed the 8 last year. So this season's far from over. This season's barely begun. But this derby's a mini grand final.
Yeah, we'll get on to the derby at the end of the episode. But if the last year and a bit of football hasn't taught you anything, it's that the competition is super tight and it's just going to be weird. There's going to be so many upset results. In the grand scheme of things, a loss to a grand finalist last year who have made, you know, a couple grand finals in 3 years, like, it's not the worst thing. Like, let's not, like, be okay with the loss. Obviously, it's shit, but, like, Geelong away, tough game. Sydney at home, we should have won that. It was very winnable for us. If Paddy Voss kicks that goal, it's a different story. We're all happy days, 4 points on the board, looking ready to go and pump West Coast next week, hopefully. But it's going to be a weird season. We've seen, you know, Geelong, who looked like the best team in the comp, go up against St Kilda, who have been tipped by many to be a bottom 4 side this year, and St Kilda got the job done. North Melbourne beat Melbourne at Marvel on Sunday. Just weird results. So, you know, a close loss in isolation, it looks bad because, you know, it was a winnable game, but I don't know, it's a long season. And that's what JL sort of reiterated in his interview. I listened to it last night after the fan cams. He pretty much said, let's not get caught up in 2 losses. We've got 22 rounds of footy yet to play. But we're not going to accept it at the same time. I was saying to you before, Hawthorn have now won 3 games. They're 3-0, having played in the opening round, and we've lost 2 games. So essentially, we're 5 games behind the Hawks. So yeah, we're starting at a massive disadvantage 2 weeks into the season, which we do not like. I think you sort of alluded to it before with the stat that was brought to us by Fergo. Bailey Banfield and Michael Frederick combining for 0 tackles. I think our forward 50 pressure was non-existent yesterday. I can't remember what his name was. I think it was SB or someone like that who hopped on the fan cams as well. He was just getting nostalgic, and he got off the train at Freo Station. He's a good Freo man, and he's saying, I just used to love going to the footy at Subi back in 2013 to 2015, and you just knew that Chris Mayne, Michael Walters, Hayden Ballantyne, and your battlers like Barlow, Mzungu, all these guys that just bring the heat, that bring the pressure. And that's not a guarantee anymore. Like, surely just a bit of forward 50, I don't know, hunt and fight. I don't know. Just small things like that are missing at the moment as well, which is frustrating. Yeah, and look, I don't think we have our mix right in any line at the moment. You look at the best teams in the competition, and there is like genuine competition for spots. We've spoken about competition for spots over the years, but I don't think we have our best mix right in the back six. The Draper, Cox, Pierce situation, you throw Chapman in that as well. There's probably 4 tools there. When I don't know if there's a spot for 4 tools. I don't have the answer. Maybe there is. The midfield mix is Erasmus and Johnson. Is there a spot for both of them in the side? Brayshaw and Sarong, they had a really tough day, and Jager O'Meara stood up and found more of the ball, but the deliveries inside 50 were pretty tragic yesterday. There was a lot of bomb and hope. And then in our forward line, if Darcy comes back into this side and Jackson goes forward, then it's Amos, Tracy, Jackson. Is it Voss? Is it Sturt? Like, is that too tall? There's just so many questions around what our best mix looks like. And I just don't know what our game style is based off these first 2 weeks of footy. There's just a lot of questions at the moment. I sort of just word vomited, but what have you got for me?
Well, you sort of mentioned like that midfield mix. You think about the guys we've got in there, like particularly Brayshaw and Sarong, who are considered 2 of the best ball winners in the game, but we were minus 12 on stoppage clearances yesterday, which is something we need to excel in if we're going to become a contender. I mean, a top 8 team, let alone a contender. Some of these superstars, I'm going to mention these 2 in particular. Like, I love those 2. We're going to build the club around them, but I feel like a few of these past 6 losses, a portion of the blame has to go on them because they're our vice captains. We need some leadership in the middle, and I just don't feel like we're getting it from them at this point in time. They're still a work in progress. Like, they're still early 20s. They've been handed the vice captaincy role at an incredibly young age. But I feel like that midfield needs a bit more leadership about it. I'm not really sure how to put it.
No, I get what you mean. Like, Brayshaw, I thought had a pretty good game against Geelong. But yeah, 2 weeks in a row, Sarong hasn't really had an impact. He went forward and got a goal, but they pretty much just get nullified out of the game. And then they find it hard to impact. Like, that's going to come with them maturing and it's going to take time for this list to find its final form. We're far, far away from the finished product. I know we're all thinking, when's his first flag coming, but yeah, Brayshaw and Sarong yesterday, neither of them had more than 20 touches. Neither of them really broke the lines. So yeah, that's a fair call, I think. They do need to step up, but yeah, there's a lot of pressure on them to lead this club. So it's not just on them, it's everyone around them. But fair point.
Yeah. And I just want to allude to a question quickly that got sent in, and I've sort of disregarded the absolute propaganda from our fan base about Will Brodie for a while now. But I think there's a case for Will Brodie. Ben Campbell sent in, is Will Brodie a player Freo missing in their lineup?
Well, based on yesterday's game, yes.
Well,
if we're losing clearances, Will Brodie is the clearance guy, right?
Absolutely. And I think what I'm thinking as well is, I thought this Caleb Sarong resting forward thing was a preseason workload management. It's not. Caleb Sarong is a genuine 60-40 mid forward at the moment. And when you've got no Caleb Sarong caliber ball winner in the midfield, even Andy Brayshaw is starting on a wing at times. We need someone in there that can win the ball. And I don't really see anyone else in the wings but Will Brodie that can do that job. I think he's quite a one-dimensional player. But that dimension he has is a dimension we need a lot at the moment. I think Sarong and Brayshaw, I think putting them in different roles around the ground isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think they can adapt their games in those areas. And I actually think Sarong offers us quite a bit as a high half forward. But I think the Will Brodie conversations certainly need to start because he is a bona fide ball winner. You look back to that 2022 campaign, an incredible contested player. He's a hard-nosed, in and under, sort of just jet in that midfield. And he's a sort of player that we're sort of dying for at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. I think Sarong and Brayshaw moving around the ground is probably an attempt to shake the tag yesterday. I don't have a problem with a mid-forward rotation, but you do want, Sarong on the ball pretty much 80% of the game at least. And yeah, in that Geelong game, it felt like he was forward for, like you said, 60-40, which is way too much. So they obviously need to work on that mix. In 2022, that was the best season we've had in,
10 years.
Since 2015. Yeah, and Will Brodie was a part of that. I haven't really been one that's been like, oh, get Will Brodie in, because our midfield, I think, has been good when Hayden Young's been in there. But I remember watching that 2022 season. I don't know if it was a nickname that caught on, but the human shovel is what I remember of Will Brodie. Just that tough inside, fuck you, win the hard ball at the coalface, like Tom Liberatore type. And then that allows Brayshaw and Sarong to, cut forward and break lines. So, yeah, I don't know what the go is with Will Brodie. How do you go from being a bona fide best 22 player in 2022 to missing 2 years of league footy? It's not like he's had massive injuries or anything like that. I do understand that the AFL demands, high-leveled, skilled, game-breaking players that can, make shit happen in the front half of the ground. So I feel like, that's why, the Bulldogs, for example, got rid of Caleb Daniel because he's not as athletic. He's a good ball user, but he doesn't, they've preferred a Fraser to come into that side and be a bigger bodied, more athletic type that can also use the ball. Will Brodie is a solid footballer, good at getting the contested ball, but can he provide much more than that? Like you said, he can be a bit one-dimensional, but if we keep losing clearance battles, which we have now for the last 6 games, what do we have to lose in dropping someone for Will Brodie?
Even in late game situations, a player like Will Brodie is invaluable. If you, again, I keep alluding to it, but that Essendon game last year, that final centre bounce, 90-90, where Durham won that clearance and kicked the winning point, Will Brodie would have won that ball. I've got zero doubts about it. We just had nobody in there of that sort of mould. And look, we've talked about how Neil Erasmus's game last night was really nice. I think he was very clean with the ball at hand, but was he really a different mould to, say, a Sarong or a Brayshaw? Or did he offer a different dynamic in that midfield? I'm not sure. I feel like our midfield at the moment is so one-dimensional. We keep banging on about it, but it's the same problem week after week, and we'll keep banging on about it until it gets fixed. I just feel like we need someone different in there. And you even look I think Will Brodie in the same midfield as Hayden Young, if a Sarong or a Brayshaw is resting elsewhere. Will Brodie will win that contested ball, and he'll get it to the outside. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter if it's clean, sexy, whatever. He'll get it to the outside, and a player of Hayden Young's type will get on the end of that, and he'll get things moving. It may not be how we want to play in the long term, but it's something we've got to patch up right now, because our contested work in the past, as you said, 6 games, has been mid-table, bottom 4 standard.
Let's just have a look. Will Brodie contract, right? He's not on the Dockers list if we don't not want him to play. So he's at the Dockers until the end of 2026, right? So you don't have players on your list that you don't have a plan for to get into the team. At what point does JL, I don't know, lose a bit of, I don't know, skin off his teeth or whatever the freaking saying is, and just go, all right, Will, go in, have a crack. You've been knocking the door down for 2 years. And give that a crack. But we just feel I don't know, there was times last year where our midfield was just liquid. The players knew where everyone was. They were handballing over their head, just knowing where each other were going to be. And right now it just feels so disjointed. Every line feels disjointed. And particularly, to be honest, the forward line, it feels like our forward entries right now, all we've got is kick it to a pack where Tracy and Jackson are. And as fun as it is to watch Tracy and Jackson fly at the ball, it's got to be draining on them to continue to throw their bodies into massive packs. I don't know. I feel like Sam Sturt coming back in does help a little bit. I think he's pretty crafty with his movement in the forward 50. We've lacked that dynamism. Jai Amos has been out of form for quite a while now. I thought he competed well yesterday, though, but we need him kicking goals. He had moments. He marked the ball after the siren, which would have been absolute scenes if we had another second on the clock. But he did kick a goal late. He got a holding the ball call, running back to help the defence, and he took some solid marks yesterday. So, there's a player there. He just needs to get his confidence up. I feel like Jai is a massive confidence player. But those small forwards, really did not have an impact yesterday. That was probably where we lacked the most because we couldn't lock the ball inside our forward 50. And then that just, it trickles it down to the way that we set up defensively. Frederick, Banfield, they would probably have gone and reviewed their game and not been too happy with it. But yeah, maybe, we get Hayden Young back into this side and Shea Bolton plays more forward minutes because it felt like he played a lot of midfield yesterday. What do you think about our forward line?
Well, do you think Jai Amos is that guy that will gain confidence from going down to Peel for a couple of weeks or so? Or is that going to have the reverse effect on him? Because we need to sort something out with him. We've been trying the same thing for a while now. He is just not hitting form. It's been a long period of time where his footy hasn't been up to scratch where we need it to be. Do you think Peel's the answer? And I'm not saying he never comes back in the team because his talent is undeniable. At his best, he is a absolutely crucial part of that tall forward mix. But is Peel the answer?
Well, does that, if we can't send Jai Amos back to the reserves, does that mean that, no one can be dropped? Does that mean that JL has favourites? Because if you're not delivering in your role for the team, it's not good enough to just keep getting played week after week after week. And I feel like I'm not trying to bash the man when he's not even on the list anymore, but it felt like Matt Taberner just couldn't be dropped for the longest time. It was until, it was only when we got Tracy and Amos in that Taberner could afford to be dropped. And maybe, Amos is important for us tactically. But to be honest, I don't think that Amos at the moment is contributing any more than Patrick Voss could. Vossi kicked a goal yesterday. I think Amos only had a goal yesterday. Vossi, did some ruck work as well. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Amos go back into the waffle because I went and watched Jai play in the waffle. I think it was 2020, might have even been 2021, might have been the first year that he was drafted. And that was when he was, Dead-Eye Jai, 2022, couldn't miss a shot. Maybe that would do wonders for his confidence. Obviously, they've got all of the personnel around the players to help them through that type of stuff as well. Speak about confidence and sending someone down to Peel. Will Brodie's been down there for a while. He'll come back into the league with his chest out. He's been dominating down there, hasn't he? I don't know. Yeah. Yep.
We need something. We've got so many guys at Peel who've just been banging the door down for the longest time, as you just said. We speak about just trying to chop and change in the midfield and back line particularly. But that forward line has so much wiggle room. I think Paddy Voss played a really good general game yesterday. He's just got the yips at the moment. His set shots, he'll know it. We know it. It's not up to scratch at the moment, but he's just got the yips. And I think his general play, his positioning, his leading patterns, I think he had quite a good game in general, aside from the, 1 goal, 3 he kicked. So I think Paddy Voss is a very, very viable second tall at the moment. And then when you get Sam Sturt back, do you send Jai back down to the waffle for a few weeks? And do you play Sturdy a bit taller? We've just got to find a mix that works. And we're never going to know until we try it. I don't know.
Well, you know what? Thinking back to last year, I think our best win was away against Sydney. And the mix that day was Sean Darcy in the ruck, who had a massive game away. Luke Jackson, Josh Tracy, Jai Amos, Sam Sturt in the forward line with Switter. And I reckon Walters would have played that day as well. So that is a pretty tall forward line. But again, we had that dominant midfield. So it wasn't like we were moving the ball from kick-ins and from our back half to try to score goals. We got a lot of goals from stoppage that day. So yeah, maybe when I think that game against Sydney, that first half was the best half that we've ever had under JL away at Sydney last year. So yeah, need some important players back. There was a question about how does Fife get back into this midfield after Matt Johnson, Jager O'Meara, and the return of Hayden Young from Harry Bender. Funny name. I think you just bring Fife back in. I don't think our midfield's really been so impressive that Fife's gonna, struggle to come back in. Like Matt Johnson had career highs against Geelong in terms of, I think, disposals and contested possessions, but you can get the ball is one thing, and we expect Jono to improve, but like actually doing something with it is another thing. I think it was Fergo again that brought up that Jono had the most inside 50 kicks yesterday, deliveries inside 50, and was going at like 60% efficiency. So, I'm happy to bring Fife back in for a Johnson or anyone. I don't want to see Jager O'Meara get dropped. But yeah, I think Fife, Johnson, Erasmus, and Brody, like that. It's going to be just that one player who can nail that spot that can then work as Sarong, Brayshaw, Young, O'Meara. Well, I feel like we just got to get that last little thing to click, and we could be right. But at the same time, we lost by 3 points. I don't think, the season's far from over yet. I feel like we could just win this week against West Coast. I fucking hope we win this week against West Coast, mind my French. But that could just be it. And then we could be on. We could swing it around and, win 3, 4, 5 games in a row, whatever it is. It could all just click at some point. But yeah, do you just see Fife come straight back in? Would you prefer Brody? What do you think?
Our midfield's certainly not untouchable. I don't think you can play Fife and Brody. I think you're then taking all pace out of the midfield. So it's certainly one or the other. Will Brody at this stage in his career probably provides a bigger body. And he's probably a more attacking player than Fife. If Fife comes in, he's going to play a defensive role. We were speaking about last night. We don't tend to play a tag. We tend to play a defensive midfielder playing sort of a role, as we did on Heaney last year. We had no one to do that yesterday, obviously, which Heaney didn't have the greatest game. It was Chad Warner that absolutely burnt us. But we had nobody really stopping that dart out of the Swans midfield. That midfield's not untouchable. I think one thing I want to bring up is we were doing it a bit in preseason, but I think as soon as Sean Darcy comes back in this team, Luke Jackson's role is going to adapt from a ruck forward to more of maybe a forward mid ruck. I think some midfield time will certainly be on the cards for Luke Jackson. He's that bigger body that can play two-way. And I think that's certainly something that we're going to experiment with. We have experimented with it in the preseason.
You think Jackson playing as a midfielder?
Yeah.
I don't know at times, to put different looks, but I wouldn't want to see him in more than 10 centre bounces a game. I don't know. I think Jackson's I don't know, if we're getting beaten out of the front of centre bounces, you might send Jackson in there to be a bit of a bigger body to, I don't know, make it harder for them to exit. But I'm not sure if I necessarily want Jackson as an on-baller. He's a ruck. For me...
He's a versatile ruck, though.
Yeah, but what other... you'd never put Tom de Koning as a on-ball midfielder. They play as a ruck, and then they're in the contest anyway. I think if you have Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson in the middle, and then you're coming up against Will Day, Jai Newcomb, and, Connor Nash or Cam McKenzie or whoever it is, they just run rings around you. I reckon that's way too tall.
You wouldn't put Tom de Koning in the midfield because... Number one, Jackson's shorter than him, so I think he's got the ability to play it with a bit more ground level skill. And I also think just a team like Carlton, they're not tracking too well at the moment, but they've got more midfield options, like their halfbacks, Hollands, Doherty. They can all roll into there and play a role for them. So we are in the need of somebody to just step up in that role. We're not like other clubs. We don't have the absolute luxury of just rolling out the same mix, bringing players in from different positions. We've got to try something. And I think Luke Jackson, I'm not saying he's the answer, but I think he's something we've certainly got to experiment with.
Yeah, fair. I'd rather, I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing Chappie in there, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah.
See what he looks like. But yeah, JL's sort of copping the heat. Football media these days, it's just an absolute furnace. There's no hiding from anything. What do you make of JL and the criticism that he's receiving?
I think his criticism is totally fair. I'm not Longmuir out by any means, but I think it would be silly for him not to be copping flack after these first 2 weeks. I I think that Indigenous All-Stars comment, the vanilla one, was so silly. I know it was a throwaway comment and he's trying to put it under the rug, but you've got 2 preseason games. You're there to show your brand. You're there to practice your brand against real opposition. Why are we playing vanilla in the preseason? It's not... This is our fault that we're underprepared for the season because our intensity just does not look up to scratch. Our play style doesn't look like we've been practicing it over the preseason. So yeah, I think JL's preparation of us this season has to be put under scrutiny. And I think just our decision making, yes, some of it's on the players, but I also think, yeah, his sort of ideology is so defensive based. And I'm not saying you can't be a good team if you're not, building from the back. That's what most good teams have. But I just still don't feel like there's enough focus being put on our ball movement. And I think that is just the absolute number one thing which separates the contenders from the A tier teams from the B tier teams. And yeah, I just really feel like we're in an absolute rut at the moment in terms of that.
Yeah, our ball movement isn't sort of aggressive enough. I feel like we're good at moving the ball quick when it's time to go. Like when we get the opportunity to break quick, we can. But we don't create that for ourselves. Sometimes it feels like we just go long down the line or, sort of run that mold. Or maybe we get a boundary throw in, we win the stoppage, we get the overlap and we're out and then we can go. But yeah, you watch sides like Hawthorn and Brisbane, the best teams in the competition, they bite off those inside kicks all the time. Maybe we don't have the players that have the skill by foot in our back half. I think Luke Ryan's a pretty good kick, but he hasn't had a good start to the season. Draper was turning it over by foot. I think Alex Pearce's foot skills are pretty questionable, to be honest. So yeah, there's a lot of questions around JL, the ball movement, that type of thing. I don't know, JL, it's on him. It's on him to get the boys playing. He's got all the tools at his disposal. We need to see some exciting footy because it's been a long time. What month are we in? It's almost the end of March. So it's been about 8 months.
Yeah. 8.
That's
nearly a year.
Crazy. That is actually nuts. Did you want to touch on the back 6 mix? Obviously, Brandon Walker goes out with injury, dislocated left shoulder, which absolutely sucks to see, especially being a recurring injury. That is worrying. Corey Wagner, I think, has played pretty good since he's been included in the side. So, that's not a replacement because he's already in the side. But, obviously he'll have to play a bigger role. I don't know. What do you think about this back 6 mix?
I think the obvious replacement for Brandon Walker from JL's lens, it's probably just going to be either Carl Warner or Josh Draper's just going to come into the 22 and Chappie's going to play smaller. I don't want to see that, to be honest. I want to see one of Draper or Cox. I've been banging on about this. I think we do need to go with the smaller mould. I was saying earlier, I think James Aish is that replacement. We need a level head back there because at the moment our ball usage is so poor. James Aish is a great kick at the footy. And as much as you can blame JL about our back to front ball movement, from the game yesterday, we were presenting in the corridors. We had options. And our halfbacks or our defensive mids or our wingers, whoever had the ball on that D50, weren't daring enough, weren't willing to make those kicks. And I don't think that's a coaching issue. I think that's an individual issue. So I just feel like we need some daring players back there. I think Carl is a good kicker of the footy. Is he exactly what we need? I'm not sure. I rate Carl Warner. I think he's definitely a part of the future of this club. I'd like to see a guy like James Aish down there. Our mix yesterday was weird because Walker went down and we had to bring Draper in and we were sort of back to square one, the exact same mix we were playing against Geelong. I think I wasn't a fan of Brennan Cox's game yesterday. I'm not going to discuss that late one-on-one with Amadi. I just don't think Cox is a one-on-one player. He just got caught in the wrong position. But I think
you don't think Cox is a good one-on-one player?
No, I don't.
I think he's been a very good one-on-one player for...
In terms of body to body, he got caught in a complete mismatch there.
Yeah, he got caught flat-footed, but I'd like to see his, especially in that All-Australian squad season. I feel like if you kicked it to a one-on-one with Cox, he was pretty reliable, but he hasn't really displayed that form for a long time with the injury. Draper's an interesting one. Do you think he plays a role more similar to Cox or Pearce?
Pierce, I'd say.
Yeah, I think he
But
plays
I'd
more
like
like
to see him
Pearce.
alongside Pierce. I think we need two of those sort of anchors down there. I think Luke Ryan can play the role of Brennan Cox, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think Josh Draper can just, hold down the fort with Pierce. I'm not a Brennan Cox hater. He's been a great servant of the club for a long time, but I really feel like he needs a few weeks out of the side. I just have not enjoyed watching him play for quite a while now.
Interesting. Yeah. Draper, Pearce, Ryan. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to drop Cox. He's on a massive contract as well. But
Yeah.
with all these points, guys, if you're listening along at home, get your comments down below. We'll make a big discussion out of this. Me and Noah are only two opinions. That was a great thing about the fan cams yesterday. Like the amount of people that were coming in and bringing in their different perspectives, it really does give us something different to think about. And different ways of analysing the Dockers, which helps us to talk about the Dockers better. So, just on the fan cams, thank you guys very much. We had about 50 people on the fan cams, great Freo people, people going home from the game who were listening to us on the train or who had just got home from the game and were hopping on the fan cams to, vent a little bit. We absolutely love it. And hopefully, next week we have a derby win and we can all hop on and celebrate together. But it is you guys that make the channel. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for the fan cams. A point of contention I wanted to raise, Noah. The match day experience has come into question as the Dockers have decided to make Vida La Vida a song that is played after goals. Now, the premise of this was the Dockers wanted something that was uniquely Freo, that represented, what the club is about, that, makes Freo unique. So we put a poll up on our Instagram story, and at the time of the recording, there was 104 votes that came in. A resounding 79% of people said that Vida La Vida does not represent our club, and 21% of people said that is uniquely Freo. So about 82-ish people said no. I was one of them, I must say.
So was I.
If you think, atmosphere, I don't know, what is Freo? It's not Vida La Vida. You think of Liverpool, you think of, You Never Walk Alone, you think of Port Adelaide, Never Tear Us Apart. Those are songs that give me goosebumps as I listen to them, as much as I hate to say it as a United fan. But, yeah, I think Freo does a lot of good things with our matchday experience. I think that new track that they have when we walk out, what's it called?
Oh, come together. All right. Something like
Bells. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think the Tame Impala song at 3/4 time, that's cool. That's unique. When it first came out, I wasn't a massive fan of it, but I've come to appreciate it. It's a song about Freo from Tame Impala, who's from Freo. I don't mind it. TNT after the games, iconic. Goes back
Fremantle.
to the Subi days. We love that. Look, so there is a lot of things that have been done right. But I just don't think Vida La Vida represents what the Freo fans want. There was people in the fan camp saying that we don't want to try to fabricate an atmosphere. There's so much that could be done, with things to create a matchday experience. And I don't think a song from Coldplay, one of the biggest, most commercial bands in the world, I just don't think that's going to bring it. What do you reckon?
Well, they scrapped it after one goal yesterday. I'm not sure if that was pre-planned or whatever. I think it was a bit of a rotation.
I reckon they're trying to bleed it in. I reckon they've started slow and they're going to try to bleed it in. But look, I don't know if this is going to be heard by people at Freo, but when 104 people vote and close to 80% of the people say it doesn't represent what we want, I think you sort of got to listen to that. Me and Noah, we're just the face of a channel that know how to turn on a camera and upload videos, but Freo Faithful is the voice of the fans, and 80% of people don't like it. So, yeah, that's all I have to really say about that. I think it's a bit of a miss.
Yeah, and the thing is, after we did sort of turn it off after one goal, the next song was, again, just a very commercial American song. It was the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's just like, what's uniquely Freo about that either. It's just very, very flattening. Like, for the past 5 years or so, since we've been at Optus, we've had sort of like a mix of Thunderstruck and a bit of didgeridoo mixed in there. Very odd mix, right? But look, it's so much more Freo than what Viva La Vida is. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just a very, very odd vibe. They've been pushing propaganda on us for about a week and a half about this. I don't like it. And as you just said, we are two people who are the face of a channel who speaks for the fans. Come on, Freo. If there's someone at the club listening to this, I'm not saying scrap it straight away, but all I'm saying
scrap
is...
it straight away. Please.
All I'm saying is it's a bad idea if you keep on trying to just push this on us, because, nah.
Like, even the Starlight game, like, when that Starlight, like, I can get around that, you know?
Yeah, because it's themed. Yeah.
It, like, it matches the theme of the day. I don't know if that didgeridoo is just, like, Indigenous styled, like, Indigenous round, or games where we wear the Indigenous jersey. I don't know, but...
It was all games, I think.
It's all games? And
yeah, it is. It was.
So, like,
Thunderstruck,
and then it fades out to like a didgeridoo or whatever. I can't remember what it was at Subi. I can't remember if there was.
We had nothing. I don't think. I just remember the pre-game. It was a Freo. Whoa. That was elite.
Yeah, that was grouse. And like, yeah, we've been going to the footy for ever since we can remember. I remember being at Subi with the old song. Like the old Freo song when it's just the drums going da 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 da, and like that brings like goosebumps. And like we used to have the drummers early days at Optus that were going crazy on the drums. Like
that's Connor Blakely era, mate.
Like there's been plenty of stuff that the club has done right to make the atmosphere good. Vita La Vida isn't going to be it. I can tell you that right now. And like. Watching the clip of Brayshaw, I think it was Brayshaw, Moose, and Young on that podcast.
Oh, mate. It made my skin crawl.
Bro, it was cringe. It was like, so we're going to go through the run sheet. And Youngie, we need you to like sing it a little bit so the fans know what to do. Like, you can tell that Brayshaw, Young, and Moose are just there like, oh, come on. Like,
taking the
piss.
Do this.
Yeah. Well, there's no way like Hayden Young and Brayshaw are like, oh yeah, Vita La Vida. That's great. Like,
Moose is the biggest indie fan in the fucking club. Like, there is no way he has ticked that off.
Yeah, I don't know. Mate, like, why not put this to a fan vote? Like, if you want it to be uniquely Freo, I'm sure there's some sort of, I hope there's some sort of like Freo member board or something that, the Freo family that gets alluded to. I think, ask for the match day, I don't know, survey for the match day experience rather than coming up with some commercial Coldplay shite. I don't know. And to be honest, while we're on it, the bloke on the roof with the guitar, I think he could probably,
No, I'm so against that. He is uniquely Freo. What other club has a electric guitarist on the roof in the 60 seconds to bounce down? Like, we've got a whole skywalk up to stadium. May as well make use of it. I love it.
Fair. All right, I'll give you that one. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about the atmosphere and Vita La Vida by Coldplay? I've said Vita La Vida way too many, and it's not a bad song. Don't get me wrong.
It's also not called Vita La Vida. It's Viva La Vida. So
it doesn't matter.
Get that right.
I don't need to get it right, man. I've got bigger things on my mind. Like this upcoming week, we play the West Coast Eagles, and I sort of thought a couple years ago, man, it's going to be good beating West Coast for the next 10 years, like every week. Like, it's about time. We lose the away derby last year and one of the biggest upsets in derby history, the Harley Reid debut. And this week, they go to Brisbane, put in one of the most admirable efforts of any side that has gone to the Gabba in the last year. Narrowly lose, but looked very good. What are you making of this derby, Noah?
I am shit scared, mate. I'm absolutely terrified. The thing is, if we were sitting here and we were 2-0 and West Coast were 0-2, I would be feeling the exact same way because forms do not go into derbies, as we experienced last year with that Harley game. I remember, what was it, 2023, that last away derby late on in the year. I was amongst all the West Coast fans. It was a West Coast home derby. We won by 101 points. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful vibe. Everyone was whinging around us. It was just, we won by 20 goals. And I reckon I took it for granted because the next derby after that, we got absolutely pantsed by Harley. I don't want to get too tactical on this, but Harley absolutely killed us out in the middle with his speed. And we selected a really slow midfield. Like, I remember Fifey got put on the floor that day. It was embarrassing. We need to pick some speed this weekend because as much as Harley's start to the season has not been full of speed and, agility and, he's been a bit embarrassing to say the least, we really just need some oomph in that midfield because there's been nothing for the first 2 weeks. And if there's any game where we need oomph, it's a derby. So yeah, without getting too tactical, the coaches need to put in a big shift this week. The players need to put in a big shift this week. And we cannot undermine how big this game is for our season. Because if we go 0-3, it is very, very rare that a team makes finals from this position.
Well,
not saying we can't,
from 0-3 last year, but
it was rare though, wasn't it? It was very rare. It doesn't often happen. So we've really got to win this game. It's nearly a mini grand final. It is their grand final. Yeah, we've got to put in a shift. 17th versus 18th. What a state we are.
That's the thing, man. Like, if West Coast beat us, they literally put us on the bottom of the ladder.
We already are. So,
wait, are we bottom now?
Yeah, we're bottom. Yeah.
Wait, are we 18th?
We're 18th, mate. We're the worst team in the league.
I thought West Coast were. I just sort of assumed that West Coast
Oh, no,
were.
they are. They are. I apologise.
Yeah,
sorry,
come
mate.
on, bro. We're on 62%.
We're not quite the worst team in the league. Get in.
Yeah, so the teams without wins, Carlton, Melbourne, Essendon, Freo, West Coast. That is disgusting. To think that Richmond have more wins than us is baffling. But yeah, I don't know, the Harley Reid thing right now, it's an interesting discussion because he's been out of form the last 2 weeks. There's always a lot of talk surrounding him. Anytime you bring up West Coast, the next sentence is probably going to have Harley Reid in it. I think he seems easy to get under the skin off at the moment. Like, he obviously flipped the bird to the Brisbane fans. I think Liam Baker's probably their best mid at the moment. He looked really good. And I think Kelly had a pretty good game as well against Brisbane. We'll need to do something to stop Liam Ryan. Probably send Geordie Clark to him, I reckon. But yeah, come on. We have to win this. It's going to be a turning point for our season. Is it worth even trying to predict it? I don't even think it is worth because
no, not really.
But
I also want to say quickly, like at the time we're recording this, Harley has not been charged, but he also might not play because he just dug 2 knees into Dane Zorko, who was staying still on the floor into the chest. It was a bit of a dog act. So I'm not actually sure if Harley's gonna get rubbed out for that one. There's been nothing that's come out as of yet. But yeah, it wasn't a good look from him.
No. Yeah, he's generating headlines for all the wrong reasons, young Harley Reid. And yeah, without speaking about West Coast too much, like, whether he stays or whether he goes, it remains to be seen. But yeah, this is the AFL in this current day with all the media coverage that there is. He's copping the heat. So yeah, hopefully the Freo fans, continue to put on the heat, but in a respectful way. He's a good young player, but yeah, he's not making a case for himself at the moment. This week on the Freo Faithful channel, we've got a preview with True Footy, or Jesse True Eagle. If you've ever seen that bloke, I don't know if you've seen him before. I think I've made 1 or 2 videos with him, but that'll be out Wednesday. UCAP with the preview Thursday, and the teams, and then the fan cams after the game on Sunday. Whether we win or lose, please join. I'm sure if we lose, the views will be off the chain. But yeah, that's it. That's this week on Freo Faithful. Hopefully this time next week on the pod, we're celebrating a win against West Coast, Noah.
Yeah, look, Faithful, stick fat. As Rory said, 0-2, season's over 24 weeks. If we win this, our season could be flipped on its head in a very good way. So we don't want to be overreacting. We've gotten out all of our negative emotions. And from here on out, we're focusing on the derby and figuring out what it takes to beat this silly little football club.
We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to the channel for more throughout the week. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you soon. Come on, Freo.